Whoa, what just happened there? I missed my cue. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. We've got a great show today talking about Canada, and the whole team is in the house to get going for the first time here in 2026. I think we've got. Well, I'm not even talking into my mic. That might have been the problem. I was expecting a prompt to start, but that's okay. We're doing great. How y'all doing, team? How y'all doing?
Good. You sound a lot better now.
Yeah, I got a new mic. We're doing great with the new mic. So guys, welcome. How are we all feeling with the market crash, the state of Canada? We're going to talk all about it today. I've got some fun notes. We're going to go to Ottawa, and then we're going to work our way sort of across the country. I've got something from New Brunswick to start us off. Then we're going to hop over to Quebec and Ontario, and then we're going to drive west and to take a little stock in what's going on in the whole country. Of course, Bitcoin running in the background as we analyze all this stuff, as Bitcoiners do, of course. Bitcoin, not just a P2P electronic cash network, also a P2P information network. And a lot of us get our info from other Bitcoiners, and we hope we can be a resource and be useful to all you folks out there in Canada, because, of course, it is a dry desert wasteland when it comes to news. We'll talk a little bit about it. It might even be getting worse, believe it or not. We're coming to you live here on YouTube, Rumble, X, various other platforms as well. I think Brad Mills might be sharing it with his channels, as he often does. So there you go. So welcome, guys. Welcome. How y'all doing?
Good.
Well, that's encouraging.
Yeah.
That's encouraging. What about you, Brad? We've seen that you've, I think, time well invested in your own mental and spiritual fortitude. It's been a couple of years you've been on this quest, and it looks like you're ready to handle whatever the hell we're going through right now.
I look laggy on my end. Am I laggy to you guys?
Nope. You look great.
Okay. I'm
What's
like,
happening?
everything's chopping.
The only thing I see chopping is your beard. That's the only chop thing I see.
I forgot this. My wife keeps teasing me about it.
You were too busy looking at the price charts on X when you should have been centering yourself.
Yeah, centering the razor. Yeah, things are good. I had this is the first bear market crash that I've experienced where I'm not constantly following the news and watching the price.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that because I had done all this work in myself over the last 2 years, like going to the gym, working on my relationship, hiring all these coaches, working on my mindset, reading all these books, journaling, goal setting, like all the stuff that I'm like, okay, I want to be able to be a better leader. I want to level up. I want to be able to have more of a mindset, like a Citadel mindset, right? I thought like this wouldn't affect me, but clearly it did. And I posted about it on Twitter, and a lot of people resonated with it, which was good. I'm glad to be an example for vulnerability, I guess, of like how this shit really affects you sometimes. One day I'll be like Dave, where it can just roll up in bed and not affect me, but it still affects me. But I kind of went through the process a lot easier this time. It was quicker to realize what was happening, and even the fact that I recognized that like so quickly that I was not in I was in dysrhythm with myself. My mind and my body were not in rhythm, and it was like totally dysregulated, and I was just tight. Actually, Heather from I think it's Heather, right, Dave? Like from Coinbase, she does like hypnosis and somatic therapy and stuff like that. She was responding to me in the tweet too and gave me a couple good tips and a book to read and stuff. So I started reading these books on somatics, and I think it's a real thing. I think like financial trauma is a real form of trauma, and if you're not able to process as it happens the financial trauma, then you can store it in your body, and it can kind of come up as a nervous system response to an indicator, to a trigger, like a price of an asset that is at the top of your identity stack going down in value. Your body could react like there's a tiger in the bushes ready to pounce on you. And that's what was happening to me. So it's just been interesting to kind of explore that, see what's happening to me, rather than me in the past where I was following the news, I was following everything so closely. And then when the price would crash, I wouldn't have the space from all this news and the day-to-day stuff. I would be like, oh, of course I'm reacting like this because I'm constantly filling my mind with all these inputs, but all the shit that's going wrong in the world. But now I have got a lot of space from that, and it still happened. So I was like, there's something deeper there that I got to work on, that probably a lot of people have that problem.
The fight or flight is definitely something that gets conjured from this. That's what I see. But what I do end up seeing is it's you think the spending of energy and that there's something you can do about it, and that you think that you can be physically capable of stopping or changing or protect yourself. But what I realize, especially with this one, is that it's kind of like a hamster wheel, or even a track that you run. You sort of come back to the same conclusions, and even a lot of people talking about market manipulation. And we heard Scott Bessent in the United States just the other day say, "There's nothing I can do. We're not going to bail out Bitcoin. Obviously, that's nothing I can do to print more magic internet money. That's just the way it works." And so when I look at like you said, your personality stack with Bitcoin, the first sort of Bitcoin meme that I think is the first contact with the rabbit hole or Bitcoin memetics is, of course, the 21 million, right? The absolute cap. And that brings you right after that to don't trust, verify, right? Because, how do we know about the 21 million cap? Well, it's, partly the don't trust, verify aspect of Bitcoin. And then that brings you to sort of the third memetic, which is proof of work. And what I see in all of these cases, those three memetics, otherwise known as the Bitcoin rabbit hole, sort of being the conclusions you get to when you run around this loop, right? You see all the Epstein stuff, you see all the FUD, what do they call it? The quantum sailor, Bitcoin, something crazy, right? It just shows the absolute front that we're being presented out there. And then knowing that all this is happening, in particular in the United States, I have a note here that's talking about how the recalibration of the United States can really be perceived through what's going on, because inevitably you end up at this world of the financial manipulative economy going up against the real economy, going up against the proof of work stack. And you can see that if we get through all of this, it's the Bitcoin personality stack that comes with understanding these memetics, that comes with these sort of software upgrades that really matters, because America, Canada, everyone about to get another lesson in don't trust, verify with the election auditing news that's coming, and with the new SAVE Act, and how Congress is going to be forced anyway into enacting what President Trump wants. And inevitably that leads us to a square fight, I think, against as Bitcoiners and other people, against this financial parasite class that's been running the world for a long time. So I see it indeed, like you're saying, as if there's something you can do in the moment. But what you realize, and I think, tell me if you're there, Brad, you just sort of come back around to the things you've already realized in the past 2 years, and you realize that you're fully equipped and ready to play the game.
Well, that's kind of, there's like the instinctual body reaction stuff that happens. And thank you, ChatGPT MD, for diagnosing me with all these disorders and letting me realize it. I literally woke up in the morning. I talked about it in the tweet. I was honest about it. I got into a fight with my wife, and it was like an old habit where before I was doing all this work, we would get into fights like this over, she would flood over some trigger that she has, and then I have a trigger that I don't like being controlled, and I don't like authority. So if someone's trying to tell me what to do, I instinctually fight against it, so I would like treat her like she's trying to control me, and then we'd kind of get into a fight. So I've been doing a lot of work on myself to catch when I'm flooding, and we try to catch each other. So like I now know like what her triggers are and when she's flooding, and I can respond in a way that helps her, and then she's aware of what flooding triggers I have, and then she can catch me. And we were both in a weak point where we just both flooded and didn't catch each other and just caused a stupid fight. Went to bed upset with each other, woke up in the morning, and I was like in this old habit of like, I was just feeling in the morning, like almost like, am I depressed? Like, is the price actually making me depressed? Is this depression? Like, what is wrong with me? And I went to ChatGPT and I described the whole entire thing. I gave it all my history of like financial traumas I've had in the past and shit, and like all the Bitcoin market cycles and all the health issues and stuff. So you're welcome, OpenAI, for all that data. But it gave me a really good answer of how to analyze this. It was like, this is not like a mindset failure. This is not a depression failure, because it's a known triggering event that keeps causing these reactions. And it's good that you can catch and be aware of this stuff and catch, what is causing these reactions. The shoulder tightness, the tightness in your chest, like the heavy sighing breaths, and going back on Twitter and kind of just like searching for some positive news, but then
tunnel vision,
doom scrolling into Epstein files instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing. All that shit is like, yeah, it's fight, flight, and freeze.
Yeah.
And so when I became aware of it, and it's like, basically you have to your mind knows that Bitcoin is the future, Bitcoin is safety, Bitcoin is competency. It's like all these like positive things for me, because I've been in Bitcoin so long. And for a lot of us that have the same thing, whether it's Bitcoin or if it's Tesla for you or whatever, gold or whatever, if that thing that you have that conviction in and that has helped change your life, and you really believe in it from like a top of your identity stack level, like foundationally, the principles of owning this asset and being sovereign and whatever, the price going up, it just happens to be like, you celebrate, everybody's happy. So it's like your body learns that price going up means safety. It means expansion. It means you can do more. It means you're safer. And then when price goes down, it means you're regressing, and there's a threat in the horizon. So your body gets into fight, flight, or freeze mode if you don't know how to handle it. So it's all about like processing that like previous financial trauma in a way, and telling your body like, you're safe. You don't need to be in this mode. And then for me, it's just kind of reading more about it and stuff, but I'm still processing, I'm still going through it, but I'm much better. And I had a conversation with my wife. I apologized to her. I told her what was going on. And I was like, hey, we just got to be a little bit more patient while I figure out how to solve this, and like, just be aware that I'm on edge right now. It's not my mind being scared that Bitcoin is going to go to zero or something. It's my body just reacting in this way. And I'm just like you said, tunnel vision, focused, looking for threats. And the funny thing is, though, when the price dropped to 60 yesterday, the old instinct came back of just like, I got excited, and I was like, I was flipping couch cushions, like what can I sell to buy more Bitcoin? And I started calling up like accounts that I had forgotten about, and just searching every login I had to be like, where do I have like $5,000 in some account I forgot to transfer over or something? Yeah. And I was just buying the dip all day long yesterday with every single bit of money I could find, that like, as much as they'd let me. Cause it's funny too. Like I had the an account that I had set up with a financial advisor, and I moved most of it out, but they weren't able to transfer one of my accounts, like my TFSA or something like that. And so instead, because we couldn't buy the Bitcoin ETF back in 2020, instead of transferring it out, we couldn't do it. It was some problem. I was like, just buy the gold. The gold just cratered. Like, buy gold. That's at least a proxy to Bitcoin in some way. It's scarcity. It's store of value. Just buy that. Just go all in on gold. I don't want to be in anything else. And so they did it. And so I forgot about that. And I went back to that, like when I was going through my flipping all the couch cushions online on my accounts, like, where do I have any money that I can buy some Bitcoin with? Because I'm all in on Bitcoin. I don't have like money sitting around that I can do stuff with or buy the dip with. And it was my trainer, my fitness trainer, Alan. He texted me and he was just like, dude, look, I'm buying the dip. Like you say, like, I'm trusting the plan. I'm DCAing. So I just bought again. But dude, I got to ask you, are you doing it? And that kind of like hit me. And I was like, shit, like, it's true. I'm telling him to buy the dip. I'm telling everybody to buy the dip. Like, I got to go buy the dip. So I was like, shit, yeah, like at these prices, it's like, it activated, like it took over that body reaction thing. And it was just like FOMO set in. I was like, how do I sell? So I got them. I went to that account and it had gone up like 3x. So I was like, sell as much as you possibly can to buy the Bitcoin ETF for me, please. And the rules of the Canadian fiduciaries and stuff like that is they have they have a sponsorship by a dealer, and the dealer has risk parameters that if an advisor puts somebody into something that's too risky, then they could lose their sponsorship. So they won't put you 100% in Bitcoin unless. So I was only able to get about 50% of my account into Bitcoin, but I felt like I did something positive there. But again, it's just funny. It's like I want to buy the dip with all of my money, but because I have the money in the traditional financial system, it's like they won't let me buy Bitcoin with it. I can only buy half of my money with Bitcoin.
Well, that's good testimony. I want to hear Dave's, because I'm going to make a prediction before I hear from you, Dave, how this market downtrend's been affecting you. But I suspect the accelerationist in you, and with your knowledge of the the manipulation going on out there, that this has been a pleasant surprise. I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat where I like wish I had more fiat kicking around to be buying more Bitcoin. I haven't had an emotional reaction in a long time to Bitcoin, but I realized that the only place I'm still making an emotional decision is on the FOMO, which leads me to still keep buying the top. And so, like, the right move would have been, like, it was kind of obvious that we were near at least a heated position, if like, and I was still buying up there because I'm just FOMO'd about missing even more of the top. But the right move would have been to just start banking some cash for a few months and wait. But
I threw everything in last Friday, and I thought that was the bottom, and I was like, oh.
In terms of like the emotional, like the stress of this whole thing, like I still don't really find out about the price very often unless it's usually when I go see people and they're like, oh, you must be sad or you must be happy. And I don't know, like, sure.
Well, now I'm tense. Thanks a lot.
Well, there you go. So let's start with our Canadian news, folks. Indeed, there's a lot going on. I want to start with something that's got some lips wagging and people talking. That is, the former prime minister had his public hanging this week. No, not that kind of public hanging. Not the kind people are anticipating in America. The kind of public hanging that comes when you have your prime ministerial portrait up. And indeed, here is Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Let me get a better look at what we're doing here. Just a second. Harper was in Ottawa last. Oh, geez, why does it do that? Hold on a second here. There, this will be what I got for now, although I don't love it. How's this? Is this better? Let me figure out. That okay.
Works.
That works, yeah. So indeed, Prime Minister Harper was in Ottawa making a series of speeches. It's also the 20th anniversary of his taking office. Something I was a part of. I was there 20 years ago when we ended up in Ottawa. I was a law student. I just finished my freshman year of law school, and we had won Quebec City. And as a result, I went to law school in Quebec City. So I kind of had an open invitation to work in Ottawa. A tremendous experience for me. I met my wife along that time in that summer, and learned a lot, did a lot. And that experience still lives with me. However, Harper was there this weekend and talking about how Canada and Canadians need to make any sacrifice necessary in order to preserve Canada's independence from external forces. And any sacrifice necessary, to me anyway, sounds like national identity trumps your own personal wealth, your own personal well-being. It sounds like Brad, he's okay with you experiencing trauma in order to preserve national identity. So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but when I hear him say that, and I think about the delta of 20 years and the amount of leadership he had with Conservatives 20 years ago, and I look at it now and I see a lot of people saying, I wouldn't follow you, down to the corner store at this point, if that's what you're talking about, because I can't afford anything there because you told me I had to sacrifice. in order to preserve this. And indeed, it makes me think, like,
was he talking about China or was he talking about America?
America, I think.
Intentionally vague, I think.
Intentionally vague. When I think of what this means, even Canadian national identity, it reminds me that whatever's happening in Ottawa and whatever happens to Canada in the future, no one can stop you from still being Canadian. Like, you don't Ottawa and Parliament and whatever that is they do there doesn't make anyone particularly Canadian. There are other things besides the legal organization around Ottawa that is Canada. I think just like there's regional identity in the United States, the regional identity of being Canadian probably can't evaporate just because some legal construct is gone. So, I think of how to preserve it within these two aspects of what do the legal aspects mean, and what do your own personal talent stack or personality stack, what does that mean to being Canadian? So I see him, when I see this speech, I saw why he wasn't able to keep power for longer than his 9 years. And indeed, why he lost to CBC and whatever it is they did to create Trudeau. So, Dave, I want your take on this. This is, the West was in was his famous line 2 decades ago. The West was in. Is the West in?
So,
is it really?
There's a part of me who wants to view this as a sneaky independence endorsement, because, preserve our independence does not necessarily mean stay under the thumb of the East. Right. And I'm definitely of the opinion that we should avoid becoming American and, taking whatever sacrifices we need to take. If that includes breaking up Canada, that's a sacrifice that I would be willing to make. So you could look at it that way. That's probably not what he meant.
I like that take. I hadn't thought of that, because I felt this was out of character for Harper. I expected a little more. So now that you read it that way, that's not.
But that said, I don't think that's where my brain wanted to go to charitably. But when I think about Harper and I think back, I do think Harper was the greatest prime minister we had in my lifetime by a fairly wide margin. But I also thought he left a tremendous amount on the table. He came in with a pretty strong mandate. The West is in, a mandate to fix Canada, to bring the West's interests into Canada, and really this sort of common sense, compassionate conservatism that I think was really coming up in those times. The socially liberal, fiscally conservative, common sense governance, that I think that's what he was really elected on. And we didn't really see that. We saw somebody who, while did a fairly good job of keeping the company afloat, or the country, running it like a company, keeping it afloat and getting us into a better financial situation, he was still really slowly going down the path of globalism and buying into these globalist initiatives that really didn't balloon until right around the time that Trudeau came into power. And that was obviously part of that swing. So I still see Harper as a tool of the globalist agenda. I don't think there's really any reason to think any different at this point. And that's, I fully expect him to at some point come out firmly against Alberta independence.
Yeah, I expect the same thing. And I'll say, I remember when he won a majority, and the thing that got me sort of excommunicated from having any connections to his office or any influence happened after the majority, when I said, you need to destroy the CBC while you can. There's no going forward without having this fight, because I said they're not going to let you win another majority. And they were of the mind at the time that they could govern for 3-4 mandates because they were doing all the right things. And I said, I'm afraid you're not dealing with reality here. That's not reality. You don't get rewarded for doing the job correctly. There's no such reward. When you allow propagandists like the CBC to operate, and you have one chance to exercise your power, one chance to destroy them forever. They were, it's like the Lord of the Rings. They're sitting there and they had one chance to destroy evil. and he decided not to. And I said, you will live to regret this, because they're not going to let you have another chance at this. No matter how well you govern, they're going to find a way, and they're going to come up with a crazy story. They're going to call you all kinds of names. They're going to call you Hitler. And the way I believe he failed is because he didn't understand that in the future we would have things like Nigga Heil Hitler in the United States, that it was going that way, that it was going to extremes, that it was going to Kanye West and all these other huge mimetic fights that are out there. And he just didn't have the creativity or the imagination to know that it was Donald Trump and these kinds of actors that were going to change the world, and that his tightly scripted messaging was fake and would never work. And so what I see here is just an example of that failure continuing. He just still doesn't really understand the way the world works, I don't think, unfortunately, and still operates under this illusion. So that's what I saw. Brad, did you have any thoughts on old Harper in retrospect?
I didn't see the video, but my mind instinctively went to China and all the stuff that's been going on in the news and the headlines over China, and Carney making deals with China and all that stuff. So yeah, I kind of went the other way with it. I was thinking I didn't hear what he said. Maybe he said America in his speech, but I think the bigger threat to Canada right now is China influence rather than American tariffs and all that stuff.
Yeah, but unfortunately, no one's talking about the China threat. It's like not even in the news. I know I saw, sort of peak power Trump the other day, and it's when he said, he was interviewed on Friday or Saturday about this, and they asked him about the China Canada influence. And this is just a perfect example of Trump and how he operates, where they asked him about it, and he says, oh, if they keep going on with China, there's going to be no more Canada. They're going to end Canada. The first thing they're going to do is end ice hockey. And which is insane, obviously. But just look at how Trump operates. Of course, it's not real that they're going to end ice hockey, but what it forces in the Canadian mind is to start talking about China influence, because you laugh and you get angry and you say they can't stop hockey, but your mind starts calculating what they can stop and like how far is the influence, like what can they actually do. So you could see he just came up with ice hockey because he knew it would turn into a lightning rod and it would attract attention. It would get people to talk about China. It would get people to start measuring what the influence China actually has on Canada is. And that's him winning, right? That's exactly how you play this game. If he comes out and gives some kind of technocratic explanation, everyone's tried to say Canada is losing sovereignty to China. No one listens. But if you say they're going to threaten hockey, you get a bunch of people to say, no. But then other people say, but hold on. So just an amazing move by Trump, again, always ahead of the game when it comes to this stuff. And I think in some small way forcing Canadians to take a look at the large steaming pile of shit that's being laid in Canada with all these China deals.
Breaking news. China promises to allow us to continue to play ice hockey.
Yeah. Exactly. We're not strong enough to stop you from playing ice hockey. And then it's the ellipse ... But what are you going to stop us doing? And just incredible stuff. You gotta hand it to Trump when he pulls this stuff off. So indeed, here's a little bit what I'm saying about Canadians. Ryan Garrettson says, after watching the same Liberals get elected 4 times in a row, it's no longer a question of if Canadians are intelligent, because we have the answer. It's really opened my eyes to just how uninformed, gullible, and misleaded the public is in our country. They endlessly repeat never Pierre, but who are they kidding? It doesn't matter who's the head of the Conservatives. These people are not willing to give anyone the chance, no matter how bad it gets or who it is. They have been made so fearful of the unknown, and it's a sad state in our country. And I think a lot of people are seeing it that way indeed. It's looking more and more like Canadians. I know, when I was at Satoshi Roundtable last weekend, everyone in the Gulf Coast will say, what happened to Canada? It's sort of well known. Even Europe, Europe, all of their leaders are at historic lows. Macron, Dirty Sanchez in Spain, all these fellas are at all-time lows. Merz in Germany, Keir Starmer in the UK. But Liberals in Canada continue to enjoy majority territory support, plus 50%, pretty much across the board with their saber rattling against the United States. So it really does induce all kinds of questions. Not that it matters what foreigners think, but it does show that Canadians absolutely have a different perception of themselves versus the rest of the country. So, there you go. And there's this here I have from Ian Bremer. Americans do not understand how angry Canadians are with Trump and the U.S. more broadly. Permanent damage done to America's once closest relationship. Harper, I will say, spent time saying that someone, that Harper said the problems that Canada faced can't be blamed on Trump and should be based on the bad decisions of the Liberals. And there was a bit of a heart mic moment here where CTV's Power Play, someone said he's right, and it was captured on the broadcast. But indeed, the truth is, I think 95% of Americans don't even think about Canada, let alone care enough to understand what's going on. When lefties realize this, maybe they'll start understanding exactly how absolutely insignificant we really are, and why we are the ones responsible for fixing this absolutely necessary part of Canada's existence. So, yeah, just Canada getting caught up in all of this, the blame game, and who's at fault, where the fear stimulus is coming from in Canada, where the superiority complex is coming from in Canada, what are the sources of Canadian desire for the future and their perception of the future, as well as what threatens them, just completely out of lockstep with what's going on in a lot of the rest of the world. Now, you guys, I spend a lot of time in Canada too, but it is incredible that you'll continue to go to social gatherings with people who aren't in Bitcoin and they just have no idea what's going on in the rest of the world. And it's becoming more and more jarring, I think. Is that very perceptible this week? I know, Dave, you run in lots of sovereignist circles, so I doubt it's that extreme, but I'm certain you are still coming across people who are, completely reading this stuff according to the CBC script.
I mean, I think the number of normies that are starting to wake up is really increasing here. So I don't think there's that much of that anymore. There is, there's this really great weakness of collectivism where they're basically allergic to reality. And so at a certain point, the math of the situation catches up with them, and their standard of living falls apart when they have allowed the leftists to loot them for so long. And we're just in a little bit of a different scenario because Canada is such a resource-rich country, led by the oil in Alberta here, that we've been able to float everybody's standard of living through some absolutely unimaginably stupid policies. And so there's not enough pain in Toronto, basically, to make these people wake up and realize that the policies that they voted for are what is making their lives suck.
So we're still at the pain and poverty lessons.
We are, yeah. Not enough pain yet.
Eastside Tony says, Americans, think about the time Canadians booed our national anthem and when we started the hockey game with a fight. 4 fights. Those were fun fights. We might get another replay of that with the Olympics coming up. America-Canada would be pretty fun to watch at this point for the Olympics. So although there is no gold left in the Olympic medals, of course, it's been diluted like all other medals. It's down to less than 1%. It rusts now. Some of the medals are rusty by the end of the games. In the Paris Olympics.
It's a perfect metaphor.
Yeah, it's perfect. The gold medals were actually rusty within the 2 weeks of the Olympics. There was some humidity in Paris, and it caused the gold medals to get to get rusty, which is kind of hilarious. So let's move now over to the maritime provinces. I've got this up. It turns out the government of New Brunswick is going to join the Euro folks in trying to ban X. So the government of New Brunswick says it's no longer going to use X, first of all, routinely to communicate with constituents, citing its deeply troubling concerns. If you guys didn't know, the UK, France raided the X offices the other day in Paris. And Dirty Sanchez, the leader of Spain, is talking about banning X as well in Spain. Now, on the flip side, America is getting rid of sovereign immunity. So these companies are going to be able to sue the sovereigns of foreign countries. It looks like Elon Musk is going to be able to sue the Spanish government, the French government, the British government, the EU itself. So America definitely putting its money where its mouth is when it comes to First Amendment rights and shielding with the Granite Act any ability of a foreign regulator infringing American communications applications. So here, Dan Elba saying X still allows Canadians to share Canadian news content online, something they cannot do on Facebook. In turn, many Canadians who are users of the platform use that information to hold governments accountable. No platform is perfect, but accountability matters. And on cue, of course, we have Evan Solomon talking about the investigation that the government is currently doing on X, probably about the bikini thing again. I think it's about the bikini stuff with the AI images that you can grok and the bikini stuff. So indeed, let's not forget that Evan Solomon is a major money launderer, right? He did the money laundering for many years while he was working for the fake news. I don't think I mind. I don't think I'm setting myself for liable or anything. I think that was a confirmed case of influence peddling. So sue me, I guess. We see here the corruption of Evan Solomon is particularly transparent because Canadians have known him at one time when he was an interviewer of intelligence, tenacity, and objectivity. He was admirable and impressive. Now, there's nothing of that man. He's become a greasy, evasive, and dishonest liberal politician as any other. So thoughts on the X case, thoughts on New Brunswick, I guess deciding that X is below their constituents and their communications channels, and where you think some of this stuff is headed to, Brad. Any thoughts on X and a ban in Canada, what that could mean?
It's all so tiresome.
It really is. It really is. Yeah.
It doesn't even matter. Like
No.
the I don't know if you guys have been following the AI agent stuff as much as I have over the last week or so.
Book and everything.
OpenClaw, and I'm following
Hmm.
Kale, who's the Cashew protocol developer, also helped with BitChat that Jack Dorsey launched, the open source like Bluetooth communication protocol that was used in Turkey, I think it was, when they shut down the internet. Number one app downloaded for people to try to bypass these censorship blockades of the internet itself, right? Like you create an mesh net using your cell phone, Bluetooth, and then so Kale's developing that stuff. He just launched a OpenClaw service. There was Claude, and then Molt Book, or Claude and then Multi or something, and then they switched to OpenClaw. So whatever. It's this simple protocol for being able to create AI agents. And then they created the Molt Book. Somebody created Molt Book, which is Facebook or Reddit for AI agents. And you basically you can be completely reckless and put it on your main computer and then give it access to all your files and communications and stuff and your bank account and your Bitcoin wallet. And then it's completely insecure right now. Like it scores like a 2 out of 100 on the security pen testing and stuff. There's it's full of malware and all kinds of shit. It's pretty early on there. So people are definitely experimenting with it, but mostly the smart people are putting it on. They're buying a MacBook Mini or a Mac Mini, putting it on there. Or what Kale did was he launched a server to make your own instance, and it's like a cloud-hosted, secure enclave type situation. And the guys that made Mutiny Wallet, I'm an investor in Mutiny Wallet, and they shut their Mutiny Wallet down last year, but they pivoted. They were doing some stuff with Nostr Wallet Connect. They created that sort of payment protocol for Lightning wallets to connect to make Nostr payments and zaps and stuff. But then they pivoted into AI. So the guys at Mutiny are now Maple AI, and Maple AI is the product that they're focused on, and they got an API. So it's like private LLMs. So then I saw Marty Bent was tweeting he's got his system going. They've got an AI agent now tweeting about interesting topics and stuff on Twitter. Jeff Booth set up an open claw agent. Now he reactivated his Twitter, and he gave his agent access to his Twitter account, and all the tweets are basically Jeff Booth's agent, trained on it. Jeff Booth's interviews and his Nostr.
I unfortunately had to mute him because I could see them. Not that I'm anti Jeff Booth.
Yeah, it's just like
trait. If I don't know,
the thing is, like before, it was. They're just so behind the curve trying to censor things because the agents are like now pretty much indistinguishable from like people in the comments. It's very hard to tell when I post something whether somebody's a bot or a real person, if it's their agent replying with their handle or if it's like a bot. Like it's pretty difficult now to tell.
It's like syntax. You have to like look really closely.
Even that, man, like these agents, you can customize their souls. Like they got a soul.md file and you can tell them like, do not use M dashes, do not use capital letters, use bad punctuation, talk like me, whatever it is. Right. So they got like there's Bitcoiners are going kind of crazy with this. They got Bitcoin maximalist agents out there on Claudebook or on Maltbook.
It looks like they came to Bitcoin maximalism unto themselves. I wrote a science fiction book this 10 years ago, and it was that.
But you have to instruct your agent what to do. So the ones that found Bitcoin and Nostr were instructed to like find Bitcoin and Nostr, but they found it. Like, but they were told like go set up a Nostr, figure it out. But I don't know. My mind is just at this place where this is like level 1 of where we're going. And all this like, oh, we're going to censor X stuff. It's just, it's also tiring. It's just like, what are you going to censor the Bluetooth intranet of agents protocol that isn't even using the internet? And when people are getting all their information from agents that digest everything all over the world, how are you going to censor that? You won't be able to. But most people still get all their information on like CBC and stuff, right? So
especially
Atlantic Canadians, right? So the people that are going to be affected by the X ban, if the Atlantic provinces ban X, are just going to flip a VPN on and use it anyways. It's like, oh, you can't torrent movies. Like, okay, well, build me something that's worth not torrenting movies for, and maybe I'll consider not torrenting movies. Otherwise, I'm just going to throw a VPN on and torrent some movies. So it's like, yeah, it's just like, it's so the exciting thing for me though is just seeing it's just the mind-boggling pace of change with the AI agent stuff and all the different tools that are coming out, like not Opus, but Claude Cowork that does now operate your computer for you, and that one that Facebook just recently bought. What's that called? Manus.ai. It like it operates your browser and can do anything for you. You can literally say now this is just like a couple years ago. I was like dreaming about this to happen because I was like, I don't want to be in the comments arguing with Bitcoin haters anymore. I wish I had an AI agent that could do it for me. With Manus and these agents, like you literally can do that now. You can log into your Twitter account, and you can have your Bitcoin maximalist personality just go argue with all these lefties in the comments of all these threads and just bring them towards libertarianism or waste their time. And you can just say like a budget of like $100 a day of credits that you're willing to spend on compute to just waste the time of all these people that believe that they can censor information. So it's more, to me, it's like who's already doing that? It's probably already happening. And it's like, I don't even know how many of these threads the people in the comments anymore. Because if you ever go onto a political tweet from Mark Carney or Pierre Poilievre, it's just a cesspool now. Yeah. And it was before too, but now it's like, I bet half of those people are actually just AIs, just given access to someone's account.
I've seen them deployed in particular, and you tell me if this is true, Dave, especially around Alberta separation. You see all kinds of fake conservatives now in the threads on anything related to Alberta separation saying it's going to be too costly. Who could live with the risk? And they look kind of real, but they're not. I've tested enough of them, too few followers, constantly focused on the same talking points, repeating the same talking points. It's not that you could, not that, you know, normal NPC people don't do the same, but you're seeing it around pretty consistently now. And I find that to be, you know, one of these things where your fears, you know, in language, for example, swear words are really related to the fears of a different people, right? Like in Quebec, all of our swear words are about the church, and, you know, like tabernacle and wafer. These are all swear words in Quebec, versus French, where all the swear words are really about being an adequate lover, right? If you spill milk in France, you'll say prostitute brothel. If you spill milk in Quebec, you'll say, you know, chalice, wafer, tabernacle. And it's true. So, you know, swear words often reflect, or, you know, in the Confucian mind in Korea, the worst thing you can be called in Korea is a puppy, right? To the point where they have to use the English word puppy for the cute things you own, because to call someone, you know, subhuman and then young is, you know, the insult to injury. So literally puppy is how you fight in Korea. And when I see these fears expressed in bots, you really get a sense of what is perturbing the Canadian power structures. Because if you see them oriented towards fudding Alberta separation, you get a sense of what they're really afraid of. Have you noticed these, Dave?
Yeah, and we can see the Overton window moving in real time here.
You're
volume
low,
really,
Dave.
Yeah, your volume's real low. Yeah.
Let's see.
It's probably still not getting the mic that you had.
How about now?
Perfect. Yeah. Very good. Very
okay.
Good.
So yeah, I think the Overton window is moving in real time here, and you know, with this guys like Evan Solomon, they're an example. Like, the government's never really succeeded at banning anything, right? Like, how did that go with cocaine? It's a lot easier to download a VPN.
No, it's going great,
right? So we're, as with everything else, very lucky that the government is vastly incompetent and can't actually effectively crack down on us. And if they try doing something like banning X, to Brad's point, a lot more normal people will just figure out how to use a VPN, and will have a little bit higher online privacy skills as a result. So, you know, if they start taking away communication channels that the masses actually like, the masses will just move to communication channels that are harder to censor. And that's a positive thing, I think. And, you know, we're seeing the same thing with what you're describing with their bots, right? So the sort of opinion of the average person is shifting more towards reality. You know, more and more people are waking up, and the government is becoming more and more afraid of that. And so that's what they're going after, is that sort of crossroads where, you know, the fact that their cartoonish supervillain evil plans are always spectacularly failing is starting to dawn on a lot more people. They're trying to avoid the consequences of how stupid their plans are. Well, and that's kind of where the chickens are coming home to roost.
Yeah, and I'll say, I'll add to that, you know, when I was talking about Harper earlier about message discipline and how they thought they could, you know, just through discipline of talking point delivery, trick the media into repeating their preferred policy and preferred worldview. We're seeing that sort of double back on folks, because I know Doug Ford was adamant about the China influence, adamant about protecting the auto sector in Ontario. So I'm moving now from the censorship issue in Atlantic Canada, skipping over Quebec to Ontario. And we see now that the Prime Minister's plan with the Chinese deal for cars, of course, here we see Carney talking about it. His plan to support the auto sector is to have them sell more affordable EVs and reduce carbon. He says that's what Canadians are concerned about, and indeed that is one of the issues. But Doug Ford has had to completely change his talking points around this, and that has led to a lot of suspicion in Ontario and a real crack, I think, in Doug Ford's ability to govern, because he's so on the record about the United States threatening the Canadian auto sector. He was on the record immediately when you saw Mark Carney in China signing this China auto deal. And now he's completely changed his tune. And so within this world of messaging discipline and talking points, people do have some form of memory about it all. And it looks now that with him changing, we see this change in Ontario's own perception of him, and we're seeing almost instantly that through selling out the Ontario auto sector for these folks, we now have the Ontario Alliance. There's a burgeoning Ontario sovereignty movement to go along with what we're seeing in Quebec. Yeah, here it is. The Ontario Alliance, and I'll read the tweet here. Quebec now has been watching both Alberta and Saskatchewan with their provincial prosperity projects catching up and overtaking their own progress in its independent struggle for sovereignty from a top-down, oversized, same old status quo, centralized federalist Ottawa. But the snap resignation of Federalist Coalition Avenir du Québec, François Legault, puts the chief of the Parti Québécois, Plamondon, back in the driver's seat for sovereignty, autonomy, independence. Quebec dit oui, Alberta says yes, Saskatchewan says yes. We Ontarians here at home in Ontario need to say yes to less of a federalist Ottawa and the powers that be, elites powered by the top-down, oversized, same old status quo, centralized Carney Trudeau Liberals. So here you go. It looks like the 905, the 416. Some folks out there are starting to say that Ontario itself needs to get into this sovereignty posture. So Ontario, big news, and I don't think this is something that Doug Ford can stop. He doesn't look like he's got the skill set. I would relate him to like a Jason Kenney type trying to absorb Alberta independence. This looks like a tinderbox, if you ask me, with the kind of pain that Ontario is on the precipice of feeling with the condo market and the job losses from cars. You can easily see a betrayed Ontario population really start to make noise about all of this. Now, the best case scenario here is a complete renegotiation of Confederation, but there's multiple scenarios possible. So, Brad, have you noticed sitting in Southern Ontario, job losses threatened with the auto industry? Do you hear folks at the gym? What are people saying down in London about Ontario's position in Confederation? Is it just some guy online, or is there something there?
I don't think there's anything recently. There was a while back. A lot of people here used to be employed by Ford, and there was a bunch of car parts manufacturing plants in this area around the COVID times, and a little before then, there was a lot of problems with family members and stuff losing jobs, or factories moving away and stuff like that. But I don't think there's as much. Maybe I'm wrong, but just anecdotally, it just feels like that's not as big of an industry here anymore. Maybe they've moved it like towards Peterborough and Toronto.
Well, no, the car thing's pretty much shut down. I mean, you're hearing GM just closed. There's some major defections because of Trump's trade war and Canada's insistence on fighting it. So, the actual jobs are down net negative pretty heavily, I think, at this point. And whatever's left of it doesn't look like it's got long-term prospects because it's just incompatible now with the new U.S. supply chains. But I could imagine a lot of Ontarians.
Nobody's talking about separation though. Like there's nobody's ever. I haven't heard that yet.
Not like Alberta.
No, like I haven't even. That's funny that it's even a thing, right?
I wholeheartedly endorse Ontario's right to self-determination.
It's funny. I think though, people are still up in arms about Trump and America here, which is so silly. It's so silly. Like I literally, there's a guy that that goes to the gym who is a Bitcoin owner, but wears an elbows up T-shirt to the gym. And like I talk to him about Bitcoin all the time, and then I see him come to the gym with an elbows up shirt, and I'm like, what? This mind virus has gone deep.
Well, this James E. Thorne, you should share some James E. Thorne context with him. He's a good follow on Twitter if you don't. But here's his explanation, both of the manipulation slightly of the markets in Bitcoin, as well as what's going on structurally with this change. And he says, for the record, this has been my thesis for some time. The U.S. economy is undergoing a structural transformation. It's foundational to 19th century USA. The breadth of the market is widening as capital increasingly rotates towards sectors anchored in middle America and the nation's productive core. No AI and crypto are not dead. This shift reflects a broader realignment underway, catalyzed by Trump-era trade and industrial policies that have begun to rebuild the domestic capital base after decades of erosion by offshoring, most notably to China. The so-called Great Rotation is no longer a forward-looking hypothesis, but a visible market phenomenon. Wall Street, as ever, has come to the realization late, adjusting only now to the implications of genuine supply-side resurgence. The reindustrialization of the United States is being priced into markets at last, reaffirming a dynamic that I've long argued would define the next phase of American economic leadership. And so Ontario is one of those places that could benefit from this. They've been very protective and self-conscious about being an industrial powerhouse, and they didn't let it slide as much as the Americans did. And so it is sort of time to re-up on this if they want to be able to catch this wave. And I think that means understanding both Bitcoin and market dynamics and supply chains. So it's sort of the opposite of elbows up. So share some James E. Thorne with your elbows up, friend.
Can you guys help me understand this a little more? So I haven't been paying super close attention, but there's all this stuff about like these deals we're doing with China and these BYD cars and stuff. They're super cheap and they're apparently better technology than what we got here.
They're great.
Like, isn't that going to be good? Like, I know it's not good to be giving such a strong influence to China over us, but in terms of like the regular people that can't afford life, like, isn't it a good thing to have the cost of vehicles to go down? And
I love those cars, and I would like to have some screening for spy tech, but they're excellent. I mean, you can get a almost near copy of the Land Rover, and it's 25,000 US.
Isn't it a good thing?
Very good thing. Yeah, no,
it's probably not good for people that build the.
It's bad politically. So it's very good for Canadian consumers, but if Carney's job is to keep the country together, not using draconian censorship, not using heavy-handed means, he's got to promote the fiscal well-being of his constituents. It's very bad for the people making the cars. It's better for people to save money and buy these vehicles for sure.
How can Ford? Go ahead, Dave.
It really to be good. What this needs is an open and free market, right? Because right now, the reason that our cars are so expensive is partly driven by the fact that it's really just a financing industry rather than a car building industry at this point. So their incentive is to continue to build more expensive cars rather than respond to any kind of market stimulus, right? But beyond that, the things that drive up the price of our cars are our wage laws, our union laws, and our environmental and safety standards. That, you know, we could probably make a case that we want to have higher environmental and safety standards than China, and that we don't want our cars made by children in sweatshops. But there's a vast area in between in the real world where the fact is that Canada is just not a competitive place to do business in any way, because of the fact that you've got those unions, you've got high minimum wage laws, and you have this massive bureaucracy that just gets in the way of literally everything all the time. And for the Chinese, who can just make cars however they want, pay people however much they want, like, it's just there's no way for us to compete. And so the right way to protect our jobs in Ontario would be to open up our markets and allow us to compete with everyone on the world stage for all products.
And if you double down on that, it's not just. So when I say it's bad politically for Carney, it's good for consumers. The minute I saw it, I said, wow, that's great. Not quite as good as Trump adjusting the environmental and safety standards to allow the $10,000 Toyota truck to come to America, that is pretty welcome by most Americans, because that's one of those ways the rules affects it. But it's not just the selling of the car market to China. It's also stuff like this. Here we have from CTV News, Energy Minister won't rule out Chinese state-owned companies from buying majority stakes in Alberta's oil patch. So this is one of those areas where you're starting to see they don't seem to care about the political costs to joining with China. I mean, there's no way this is good politically for average Canadians. This is good politically for them, perhaps, especially when you think of Alberta as sort of a sunk cost, and who cares, and doesn't even matter. You're not going to get their attention or their vote anyway. So when you see it like this, you're seeing, I think, a little bit more around the incentives of what the China-Canada relationship look like. And, for all the talk as we move out west and what's going on in the country, and see that the massive and persistent calls of Alberta now as treasonous for going to meet with Trump this week. This is the Premier of British Columbia literally saying it's treason. He called it an old-fashioned word that applies to Albertans seeking to have relationships and dialogue with the United States. And remember, this is a guy who's
done treason.
It is treason, yeah.
100% treason. It meets the definition of treason. We are all engaged in treason. We are trying to separate ourselves from our relationship with the British Crown. That's treason.
Yeah. It's true.
Well, a lot of people actually seem to not want to be doing that. And that's the part where I ended up not going to the Conservative convention, because I was.
They're censoring him as we speak. They got him. I'll bring you right back up, Brad. 1 second.
I'm just kidding. I love the Conservative Party. I'm good. I went. It was great. Elbows down. That's funny. Yeah, no, I went to I was going to go. I was elected as a delegate, and I was partly wanting to go. I mean, majority of the reason I wanted to go was so that we could spread more Bitcoin knowledge to people who are so close to getting it. Mm-hmm. But I was not able to effectively organize anything and influence people to organize anything. So it didn't get done, and I felt like I was a bit I was gonna go to the event where I could meet Pierre, because Pierre actually came to my town in Strathroy. Mm-hmm. And met with the delegates and their families. So I was interested. I've been talking with a lot of the folks in the team, developing some friendships and relationships there, the people around him, and a couple of them were going to be there. So I was like, let's go, and I'll get an idea there. I'll see, are they interested? Is anyone interested in Bitcoin? If anyone is interested in talking about Bitcoin or curious, then I will probably go, because it'll be at least a little sign. I just want to see how the vibe's feeling. Am I going to waste my time by going and just trying to be like a missionary, trying to knock on doors and ask people if they've heard about our Lord and Savior Satoshi Nakamoto before, or is it going to be just people are curious and they want to come and they want to ask? So anyways, I went. And Pierre gave a pretty standard speech. There's only about 25 people there. It was kind of same type of thing he says on the campaign trail, and seemed a little bit less energetic actually. But that was probably because this was his third stop, and they were driving around all day. And the cool thing was there was a 12-year-old kid that was there, and he was curious about learning about what Pierre had to say. But nobody there really wanted to talk about Bitcoin. I didn't really push it, but I got introduced to a couple people, and one guy was and running for MP in London, Ontario, and they said, "Oh, you can tell him about Bitcoin," and he was just totally not interested in hearing about Bitcoin. He just wanted to know about real estate stuff and get pictures with Pierre and kind of have some proof for social media and stuff. There was no interest there. And then there was a bunch of regular blue collar people there, and they're just literally like concerned with America and Trump and the economy, and they don't know. Like Pierre brought up sound money a couple times, and I was like, that's good. Like he's bringing up sound money, he's bringing up the the inflation of the money supply, debases the currency. So, but like people just don't respond to that. Like I started clapping when he said that, and a couple people joined in, and he's like looked at me and nodded or whatever, and then people more responded to the other stuff, like, you know, sovereignty and all this crap. So there was just generally like no interest. Even the other delegates that are in the EDA with me, like they're just so much more interested in the party policies and the politics of like, what should we vote for in terms of blah, blah, blah nonsense. So it just, yeah, it seems like it's like a high school sort of dynamic when you're in politics stuff. And a lot of them sort of believe in this idea of Canada as a part of the, you know, reporting to the crown or whatever the hell our system is, and they don't really want to be mutinous, and we don't want our independence from Britain. Like they seem to like want that, and they just want to operate within the rules of like, well, how can we be the ones in charge, and never even questioning, should we even still be having like the Queen of England or the King of England on our money? And why do we accept that? And like, do we even have independence? And even Pierre is like a policy wonk and like a history guy. Like he studies it all. He speaks very knowledgeably about the issues. And he seems to really buy into and respect the position of His Majesty's leader of the opposition and what that entails. And I think he puts that on above his own beliefs even. Like I feel like Pierre is doing like his role as His Majesty's royal opposition leader rather than Pierre, the guy that wants what he wants. It's like, I've attained this position and it's my duty and my job and it supersedes my goals. So even from the top, it seems like there's no real interest in changing anything from that perspective. So
but the risk is real that I think this is where we're talking. Like I'm just gonna ask you, Dave, like you're voting Mark Carney if there's a snap election, like 100%, right? Like you're all in for Mark Carney.
I mean, I'm pretty unlikely to vote in a federal election at this point. But yeah, I mean, I would lean towards Mark Carney. Thinking about what you were saying there though, Brad, like all of our political leaders pledge fealty to the crown, right? And we're taught growing up that this is a ceremonial affectation, that the crown is not actually in charge and does not actually own Canada. But that's just not the case. We are a colony of the British Empire to this day, and our leaders pledge fealty to the crown. And there are obviously different factions that pledge fealty to different international organizations, it seems, but I think at the end of the day, they're all globalists that intend to continue this, siphoning away of our nation's resources. And to your points about, meeting the people on the ground there, there isn't really an incentive for people in the provinces that reap the benefits of Confederation to want to move away from this crown subjugation, because they're being paid to stay. Right. So that is part of the reason why there hasn't been enough pain in Toronto yet. It's part of the reason why that pain that brings people back to reality is only starting to creep in Eastern Canada, because there's just a little bit more wealth to siphon away. And at the end of the day, it comes down to incentives. So when that runs out, I imagine that socialist policies will very suddenly become less popular.
Here, exactly. That's been sort of my talking point for the past year. Canada's future is bound to appetites for pain and poverty, and that's about it. Here you see CTV News admitting Canada's economy is on life support and the country is in recession, economist says. And I can perceive that just walking down the street in Canada. I've never seen I grew up like you, Brad. I grew up in a Quebec that was undergoing in the 1990s what was a kind of depression era. We were not participating in the typical 1990s economic boom. Quebec had its own sovereignty movement. It pushed out business. It completely transformed Montreal. Remember, in 1986, my city is still the largest city in Canada. And not much longer, it was sort of an afterthought and a regional hub and a regional capital. And I remember counting the number of bankrupt spots between the old Montreal Forum, which was sort of downtown Montreal when the Montreal Canadiens played there at Atwater and St. Catherine. When they moved the hockey arena, and my school happened to be there, they moved the hockey arena to sort of the newer downtown where the skyscrapers are. And it led to, it was every second building was bankrupt. I remember counting, something like 80 bankrupt, emptied storefronts on the main drag in Montreal. There was no jobs. Everyone was moving. Everyone was leaving. You could buy, I remember with that walk we took, Brad, up to the top of Westmount, you were lucky to get a house up there. You were lucky to get, when you sold one of the houses up there, for $400,000. That would have been, one of the big ones, was like with elevators in it and everything.
Crazy.
400,000 Canadian trash tokens they were going for back then, because
when?
no one
96,
97, near the 2000s, yeah. And so, I had been, ever since the referendum in 95, a Montreal sovereignist. I liked city states. I became very fascinated by city states at the time. I saw the economic damage done to Montreal because of nationalism, because of Canadian politics, Quebec politics, and my only instinct was, why are we involved in any of this? Why can't we be like Singapore or Hong Kong? Why can't we be like Switzerland? Why do we have to be involved? None of this applies to us. Montreal is not Canada. It's not Quebec. It's Montreal, and it's bilingual. It's all these things. And so, my first choice at the time was was Montreal separation. I traveled around, people put the Canadian flag on their backpack. I put the Montreal flag on my backpack. One of the nicest, most beautiful flags in all of the country. It has the St. George's Cross with the 4 founding peoples of Montreal. You've got the Scottish thistle, the English rose, the French fleur-de-lis, and the Irish clover. They've now put the Mohawk Iroquois white pine in the middle of the cross. Absolutely gorgeous flag. And, only then I thought of Canada as a secondary option. I still liked federalism for what it was, as long as it acknowledged Montreal. But indeed, it's all about getting that sovereignty closer to you at this point. And I think that is one of the biggest changes in Canada, and one of the biggest obstacles we have to sovereignty, because if our sovereign is the King of England and he's on another continent altogether, and he's not even the king of his own city, imagine this sovereign is not even the king of London, right? Why can't I have no king in my city? It makes no sense. There's no king in his city. Why not mine? So I see this as a choice right now between shortening the distance between you, your own personal sovereignty, and the amount of sovereignty you're allowed to express within your state, whatever configuration it is. And then ultimately, this is the fight Canadians are all getting dragged in. And so I go back to my original statement about the sacrifices that have to be made, the sacrifices Harper's asking us to make, the sacrifices we've heard Carney ask Canadians to make for a long time. And I continue to believe that Canada's future is bound by our appetite to make these sacrifices, and how much we're going to make, how much of our own sovereignty we're going to continue to forego for the sake of maintaining a national sovereignty, versus how much sovereignty we just grab for ourselves and exist within whatever new configuration comes out of Canada at the time. So that's why I think your work, Brad, on your own personal spiritual, philosophical journey is so important, because Canadians have a big obstacle up ahead. A lot of people use national identity to define who they are. I am Canadian, they will say. And it might not be as possible to do that in the future, but I think the elements are still there. And so we are going to need internet dads like you to continue to show the way, because this stuff is not going to get easier for Canadians, I don't think. And I think we're just getting started on the discombobulation that Canadians have to undergo in order to get out the other side, because we've been on the front lines of World War III for some time now. And I think the truckers thing was a big event in World War III. I think it'll be remembered that way, as a kind of D-Day. and definitely questioning people's individual sovereignty versus the power of the state. And so we're all left with finding our own level of sovereignty vis-a-vis what we share with our state, we share with the king, and all the rest of it. So it's not going to be simple, but I think people like you that are leading the way and disconnecting from this stuff and working on their own ability to traverse these times are probably the only way to go forward.
Well, part of the thing that I am trying to work on this year, like my theme word for the year last year was proof of work, and that was my gym related specifically to like proof of work. I'm strengthening myself, I'm getting my abs, you know, all that stuff. And this year I'm kind of using TikTok next block as the word. So it's just all about consistency. So no matter what the price is of Bitcoin, no matter what's happening in the world, no matter whether Canada's a solvent country or not, like Bitcoin continues. TikTok next block is like a philosophy that you can anchor to in your own personal life. So I'm trying that one on this year, and part of that is the mindset routines, like continuing to grow my mind and take new philosophies on. TikTok next block, no matter if my body feels like I'm under threat from the price crash, or I had an argument with my wife, or whatever is going on. It's like transcending the problems I've had in the past requires consistency. And through that, like, focus this year so far, I've picked up this cool philosophy that you might be aware of already, but I heard it before, but I never really truly grokked it. But it's the concept of involved unattached, and it's like you're involved in the process but unattached to the outcome. And this way you can protect your mind. You can have like a citadel mind and continue to operate within your integrity and your values and your beliefs and do what you believe is right, but without becoming emotionally responsive to the people that don't listen or the outcome not being what you want. And in a way, like, that's involved unattached is because I struggled with, like, I'm kind of ineffective. Like, I want to be more effective. I'm not being as effective as I could be. And that would stress me out. And I get all emotional about, like, the Bitcoin Coalition of Canada is not being effective as I want it to be. And my media is not as effective as I want it to be, blah, blah, blah. And it would kind of stress me out a little bit or whatever. But like this concept of like involved unattached and TikTok next block is like, just keep showing up, just keep being consistent. Don't tie your emotions to the outcome, and that eventually, whether you succeed or not, it's like your own personal happiness and mind and well-being is going to be elevated, and probably you'll influence people around you. And even if you can't measure it, like, you'll probably have a positive impact. But regardless if you do or not, just be involved in the process and unattached to the outcome. And that pairs nicely with the blissful dissatisfaction, which is another one I heard about that my coach Dan Martell taught about a few months ago. That I latched onto that one because it's also related. It's like, how can you be grateful for everything you have? How can you be grateful for Bitcoin at $60,000? How can you be grateful for being sovereign over your wealth, that even if the value of it is dropping, you don't have a financial advisor tell you, oh, you can't move that because there's a risk profile. We can't let you move that. You don't have a banker telling you, like, what are you spending this on? All that shit. You have sovereignty. So, like, blissful dissatisfaction to me is like, I'm just going to be happy living in Canada, even if shit's hitting the fan. I'm going to try to be happy with my own situation, and dissatisfied with what I currently am doing, whether it's like my level of impact, my wealth, my body, like, I want to be stronger. I want to have more impact. I want to be wealthier, but being blissful at the same time as being dissatisfied. So those three combos, TikTok next block, blissful dissatisfaction, involved unattached, are like what I'm focusing on this year. And in that way, the more I try to do that, the less concerned I am with like how people are reacting and how Canada is going and all this stuff. And I'm sure at some point it might become an issue where it's like, if the country's collapsing, like, yeah, I just got to be involved and attached. But for now, while things are like this, yeah, it's helping me at least.
Well, what you were saying just now reminded me of the 7 hermetic principles that I bring up often in my work, in my morning show. Those being that all the world is psychological, it's based on psychology. But if you look down at rhythm, and I've used that one often as TikTok next block to explain how Bitcoin can sort of join and really be a part of all of these 7 hermetic principles. These ways of evolving your own spiritual awareness come from this ancient religion, and you can sort of see a lot of what Bitcoiners have understood. This is the oldest. This is from Hermes Trismegistus, of course. This is the most ancient of religions. Correspondence being, infinity over 21 million, and you'll see a lot of the. I have a separate infograph that I drew myself, a whiteboard showing the Bitcoin connections to this. I don't know where it is. I wasn't able to find it, but indeed, rhythm is the TikTok next block component of it. So you're seeing a lot of it right there. I'll share the infograph with you later if you'd like.
Nice. I'll have
Fun
to give
stuff.
my AI agent that philosophy to digest.
I would, yeah. It's this is
Along with
like,
what's some foundational other text to give an AI agent to learn?
Are you worried that your AI agents might be getting stressed over the Bitcoin price?
I'll just tell them not to read my tweets and DMs. Don't look at my Whoop data. Oh man, but I was thinking this morning about like, because I haven't created one yet, and I just started really thinking like I got to do it because Callie's system looks like it's an easy deploy, and with Claude Cowork, you can like really solve a lot of problems by having it teach you what to do instead of struggling around for hours. Like I remember when in 2011 when I started mining Bitcoin, I was trying to figure out how to use Linux, and I was like, I was a Windows guy, and I never used Linux before because it was too complicated. And I was excited by Bitcoin, and I wanted to learn how to mine Bitcoin. And I'm like an early tech adopter, but I'm not like a super technical person. So I'm always like trying these new tech things, but like always spending so much time. And I'm like an edge case, basically. Every edge case there is like my experience with new technology. I run into every edge case. So I was like, I spent days trying to figure out how to get a Bitcoin miner going in 2011. And I had like 4 graphics cards hooked up to a motherboard. I was following instructions, and I used DaVinci's Microsoft software he wrote to use Windows. It wasn't working. I figured, I got to learn Linux. So I hooked it all up. And I was just like, I can't do this. This is insane. Like I got to hire somebody to figure. So I hired somebody who was more technical than me locally. And I was like, your job right now is just like, let's mine some Bitcoin, figure out how to do this. So he came over and we would work on it together. And like, he wasn't the most technical either, but he was like learning at the same time. So we were both learning, and it worked. We got it to work together. And so I was like, now there's like a software I can do that with. I can have like an electronic person work with me to help me figure shit out, because I wouldn't have been able to figure out how to mine Bitcoin on my own, and I had to get somebody else to do it. And then we did, and it was a pretty cool experience. But now like you can really shortcut the time apparently it takes to learn how to do this stuff with not an agent, but with like Claude or Grok or whatever. The ones that have access to your computer are like Manus and Claude and stuff. So I think I'm ready to jump in and try it, make the agents. But I also invested in Alex Svetsky's Satoshi AI project
Very cool.
a couple of years ago, because I was wanting to create from scratch a libertarian trained AI LLM. I wanted to create one that was like trained off of all the libertarian texts, and that way we wouldn't have to do all this safety gating and stuff, because it would be trained up from the principles of do no harm, don't harm anyone else's property, property rights, things like that. And it wouldn't like want to hurt humanity because it would be trained on the good principles. I think I spent like $100,000 on trying to get that thing working, and it was just like too much. It didn't work. Everything else was moving way faster than us. And then Rodolfo started doing his thing, and Alex pivoted over to they hired a team and raised money from Ross Stevens and Alan Farrington and stuff, and we just couldn't get it to work. It was working, but in the end we had to use like ChatGPT to like upload a lot of stuff to a ChatGPT agent, and then it actually could create good Bitcoin maximalist content, but it was probably like $500,000 worth of like work and people to get it to the point where an AI could respond like a Bitcoin maximalist. And now you can literally just spin up an open source one for like $10 and and you can just put in its personality, like be a Bitcoin maximalist, and it will know what to say and do and go and debate with shitcoiners and stuff. So it's so crazy how quickly things are moving with AI that like I have a tendency to be early adopter and also waste time and money trying to be first when I'm realizing like, just be patient. This shit is much smarter and more well-equipped financially people than you are working on these problems. So I don't know. Have you guys set up AI agents yet?
I was traveling during the Claudebot boom, and it was the first time I really felt like I wanted to do it. So I was trying to set one up at the Satoshi Roundtable, but anyway, just got too distracted, too much going on, market crash. So might be something I do this weekend. I'm ready to do it. I think it would be an interesting thing. I've thought about doing it. I've been, I don't know, struggling, I guess you could say, mourning with the loss of Scott Adams, and that affected me, greatly.
Sorry to hear about that. What do you think about that thing that's happening where they're like using AI?
I mean,
like
that's literally what I was gonna do with it. I was gonna create a Scott AI clone, because he gave everyone permission 10,000 times to do it on the show. He just kept saying, "I want this, please. I give you all permission now. Take all my stuff."
Wow. Okay.
However, towards the end of his life, he rescinded it and said he wanted it a little more gated because he could see it was ready to happen. And it was going to become, now that he knew he was going to die and not see the results, it was going to be a dangerous vector into getting people to be led and paced by him. And then perhaps at the last minute spiked with completely different points of view. So he started to see it as a very dangerous weapon. So I was watching, from the first episode of AI Coffee with Scott Adams, I watched and I said, holy shit, this is amazing.
Good.
So good. So the first ones, I think they only got about 15 of them off. I was watching when it was 10 viewers. I'm literally one of the first to have seen it. And the first one was like 70% there. Within a week, they were at 90% there.
Wow.
Now the last 10% is what made Scott Adams. So it still wasn't Scott Adams, but if you squinted, it was Scott Adams. And if you didn't know him as much as I knew him, and if you really, and if you have, in some ways I am a Scott Adams AI because I've watched every episode. I've mimicked his show. I copied his show in 2021. My daily show is a 100% copy of his. I look at persuasion. Using his own quote that Bitcoin is one of the greatest exercises in persuasion the world has ever known. And he's been saying that for over 10 years. He was interested in the way Bitcoin was taken up by Bitcoiners so quickly and became an operating system for their worldview. So, he did something very subtle every single day. When he started his show, he would always look at the markets, he would look at Tesla, and he would look at the price of Bitcoin, not giving you the exact price, whether it was up or down, and then telling you whether you should bother looking or not. He just used it as a proxy and his advice was always, you should probably have some. He never really was out there philosophizing as a Bitcoiner. But nevertheless, he understood what the hell was going on, and I had a relationship with him about Bitcoin and all of these things. Him and I would discuss it fairly regularly whenever he brought up some issue or something. Him and I could chat about it. So to bring it back to the AI thing, I thought about doing the exact same thing, but once I saw it, it's not about. I can get why the estate wants to slow it down and control it. It is extremely, with the amount of people suffering from his loss and not having him there consistently, it's a dangerous game. So
what a
but I think
wild
the people
thing,
made it, I think the AI guys backed off right away too. I think they got it. They didn't want to piss anyone off or anything like that. It is wild.
How about you, Dave? You messing around with it yet?
Yeah, I'm gonna just start sending my AI agent every second one of these shows and see how it goes.
Yeah,
should be able
get
to
them.
Just get a little riled up about Alberta independence and
oh, you're gonna make it. You're gonna make an Alberta independence bot?
Well, yeah, I'm gonna just I figure I can send a deep fake version of myself to do this show every once in a while and see if anybody knows.
That's a good idea. I mean, that's what Scott believed could happen because he did 3,000. He did 3,600 and something episodes over 10 years. So just do the math. He only missed about 5 days in 10 years.
Yeah, you don't need anywhere near that kind of content to make a reasonable clone of someone, really. It's pretty spooky how well it can take on someone's tone in terms of speech patterns and everything like that. And obviously the video and the voice cloning stuff is pretty much flawless.
Yeah.
So a little bit of curation, you could make a copy of somebody pretty easily, I think, at this point.
Yeah, he was doing about 15-minute videos. The Scott one was doing because it was the same background for 10 years. So very easy to replicate, very static movements. So it looked like it. He had the whole opening and you knew it was. He goes, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Scott Adams is dead. I am Scott Adams.
Oh my god! Oh my god, that's crazy.
I live in perpetuity and forever, and even saying, "Let's see how this goes," and all that stuff. So yeah, in my case, definitely, I think it's something I'm very interested in. But right now, I think that I'm still closer in my own way of doing the show to ultimately what people were attracted to in Scott Adams' show than the AI. That 10% is a big gulf. 90% of the stuff is not the stuff people care about. It was the other 10% that was important, but it could have gotten there for sure. We'll see.
Well, let's make it our homework, fellas, to set up a Claude agent by the next show. And we'll report back on how it's doing.
I'm in. I'm in.
What are you guys going to get yours to do?
Same thing.
They're simple at first. They're just text agents at first. You got to connect them to like 11 Labs and all this other shit if you want it to be able to make phone calls and appear on video. But like just at the very beginning, like what do you think you want to get it to do?
Personally, I want to see if it can curate my show for me. So I have in my system to get my show going in the morning, I have about an hour's worth of work where I speed read Twitter. I look at the accounts that I like. I like all the things that I think are going to be in the narrative that day. Then I take a notebook and I just sort of write on one page the notes down and I try to find patterns and orders or patterns. So I'll just write something that reminds me. And then on the opposite page, I'll put it in an order that makes sense. So that whole exercise, I believe I can train an AI to do. So it would be great if I just woke up and my stories were there and it had found an order based on, there's like 10 different shows.
Dude, you could even get, because like you can use tools like Descript to you have it watch all of your shows and have it transcribe all of your shows through Descript. And then learn the pattern through all the transcriptions. And then you can have another agent or the same agent, I don't know, analyze all of your graphics because you have all these cool graphics and frameworks. And then you can put that into Notebook LM because Notebook LM creates graphics now. It has like whiteboard features and stuff. So you could have an agent that creates even your frameworks of your philosophies and all that stuff. And then you could have one that is like learning about you and one that is scanning for stuff to be a show format, and one that is actually coming up with ideas for frameworks based on the way that you think about the news as it comes in.
Yeah, it would be cool to just perform the show. I like preparing it, so I don't mind. And
yeah, you do the show, and you could do your own work, but instead of like 2 or 3 hours, it might be like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, because I'm always juggling mornings with the kids at the same time. I make them breakfast. I'll get them started on math. Not that it's a problem.
We'll be doing the breakfast. You don't have to worry about that either.
Yeah. No,
what are you gonna get your? What are you gonna get your first AI bot agent to do?
I think I kind of want to get a tiny version of Mark Carney that can sit on my shoulder right here and bitch during the show.
Oh my god! An AI enemy, a little AI enemy avatar.
Yeah, it'll be like the angel and the demon on your shoulders, But
dude, that's so funny. That's like a little AI friend that you could actually create. You could actually do that. Like that's like not unrealistic. You could literally have AI friends.
He's going to say, "We live in dangerous and troubling times." He has to start every sentence that way.
That's going to be a tricky one, though, Dave. I don't know if you're going to be able to get that done by next week.
Well, I'll get an agent to do it for me.
Okay, well, that's a cool idea. It's got to start somewhere, right? You got to get the agent to like go figure out how to generate an avatar character that's like Mark Carney caricature. It probably could figure it out for you. It probably could.
I'll ask. We'll see.
You know what I'm going to get mine to do? The idea that I came up with was I'm going to get it to watch all of my coaching videos that I've been watching and create playbooks and SOPs.
What's an SOP?
Based off of standard operating procedures.
Got it. Yeah.
So I'm gonna create. I want my agent first to like learn how to use Nostr and Bitcoin, and be able to have money and be able to tip and zap and stuff like that. But then I wanted to go and watch all of the coaching videos from Dan Martell, because his whole entire catalog is here's how you can buy back your time. His whole thing is about buying back your time. And he teaches on every video a framework that is like an operating system for running your life to have to be able to work at super levels of efficiency, and how to manage a team, and how to have leadership, how to think about things, how to set goals, all this stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to get my Claude agent to experiment with like learning Dan's systems and recreating them in tools that it can connect to and that we can interface together with. So whether it's going to use Notion or whatever to catalog it, but I want it to build me like an operating system for my life, to be able to have a digitally automated operating system for my life, and then manage other agents. So I'm going to try to create like a team of like 20 agents, and each one of them will be specializing at a certain task. So we'll see. I don't think I can get that all done next week, but I'm going to try to get one ready. I'm going to try to make one and see if it can at least like process a video and like tell me what it learned and like create an SOP or something.
Fun. We do have a few comments I just want to highlight before we say good weekend. We got Plastic O2D reminding us, I'll remember when your back pain was healed by Bitcoin. He's also got some great advice here. Be a sovereign individual and run your own Bitcoin full node with self-host Electrum server for preserving the privacy of the user's address and balances. Run a Lightning node and open payment channels and do atomic swaps for enhanced privacy. Indeed. And finally,
that shit is like, that's what I want my AI agent to do. I want to have an AI agent that is my Bitcoin maximalist tech guy that can do all that stuff for me. Cause I have like two embassy nodes in boxes still. I bought their embassy node and the pro server, and I just didn't set it up again. I was like, I don't want to spend the days that are going to take me to like grok the videos and how to understand how to set this thing up. But with an agent, like I saw the embassy guys were tweeting that they got Claude bots working on the embassy server now. So like you can have your agent like run your Bitcoin node and make sure that you're doing everything with proper privacy you know, UTXO coin control, and you know, you can do all kinds of crazy cool shit with an agent that's like your Bitcoin operator agent.
Well,
the only problem is like
that might be your assignment for next week.
Yeah.
There you go.
That'll be like a long-term project.
Yeah. Well, fellas, I truly appreciate your time on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you all have a great weekend. And I shall see you next week. There should be lots of news to talk about, lots of hopefully good news for Canada coming up, but I doubt it. And although we try to make sure this is not a depressing show, right, where we want to maintain the optimism here, we're still bullish on Canada. It's just not Ottawa too much. I wouldn't have moved back to Canada and Quebec if I didn't think big things were happening, and I do think big things are happening. They're just not in the old World War II framework. This is not a bunch of give power to Ottawa and we'll win the war. Weirdly, Canada probably has to lose for us all to win, and that's where I'm at. So there you go. That's my 2 cents to leave the weekend in a positive note. Leave for the weekend in a positive note. So thanks again, fellas. I appreciate it.
Smash the crash, guys.
Smash the crash indeed, everyone. All right, folks. I'm going to shuffle my hosts off for now, and I'm going to soon put on the ad. Where is my thing here? I'm going to put on the ad, and followed by the ad and the logo. I don't know what's going on with these controls. It doesn't make any sense. So we're just going to jump to the logo, and after that, you'll hear the thanks. You'll see the thanks for watching screen. I want to tell you thanks for watching personally before you get to the screen. All right, everyone. Peace.